So this is my third and final 5 Pro Studio figure. This is Mechander Robo or Mechander Robot. The Wikipedia page says Mechander Robot. So if he looks unfamiliar, it's because this is I'd say a really obscure series. I could not find anywhere where it is being sold or has been sold in the West. I don't even think I could find any times where the series where they were selling a Japanese version in the West. It came out in 1977. The studio was Wacko Productions, Wako. So it's interesting that 5 Pro Studios would start off with for their Carbonics lineup would start off with a pretty obscure character like Astro Ganger, then move on to a very well-known character like Get a Robo, then go to Mechander Robo, which is back to being, I think, even maybe more obscure than Astro Ganger. And next they're doing Voltrons, which is one of the most well-known figures. So what kind of surprised me about this figure, the moment I picked him up, was he's he's not light, but he, for his size, you can see kind of maybe compared to my hand, the size of him. He's a good size figure, but he's pretty light, and the reason is because it's all plastic. And I should have expected that because it says on the product description, plastic. That's the only material. Now, I've seen many times where they'll put a material on there and get it wrong. And it's really uncommon for a high-end figure. This was over 200, I think it was about $238. For a figure, a high-end figure, to feature no die cast at all. And I know that, and I've been guilty of this too, figure collectors for robot figures really want die cast, as much die cast as possible. And so you even get reviews on there showing where the die cast is, showing how much die cast there is. And then you have this figure, which is 100% plastic. But the more I played with it, the more I enjoyed it, the more I articulated it. And the reason I would say that what really impressed me about this figure is how smooth all the joints are. And this is something that I was not unaware of, which is the problems of diecast. So the issue with diecast is that, particularly in the joints, and I saw this most acutely in the Soul of Chogokin figures. Some of them would have plastic over metal joints, and some of them would have metal over plastic joints. And the plastic joints were much smoother. And I like the feel of the diecast when you're touching it. And obviously this is plastic, so I'm not feeling that. The problem with, there's a couple problems with diecast. Of course, the joints, like I said, can be very stiff, and it can increase the weight and make the figure more likely to topple over. And figures like this, if they topple over, you're going to probably have some damage. It just scuffing would probably be all, but that would definitely be enough to make me unhappy. Now, this figure has a very nice low center of gravity, and it's got some big feet on it. So there is very little. The only thing is, I would say, is the ankle articulation actually is probably the weakest articulation on the figure. The bicep swivel was a little bit stiff, but not a big deal. But I think this figure, there's very little chance of it toppling over. And given the fact that it's all plastic, even if it topples over, it probably won't do any damage because it simply doesn't have the weight. I'm sure a lot of figure collectors would be unhappy with the fact that this figure does not have any die cast at all. And I have heard reviewers who have said that they don't like die cast. It's probably rare, but when you think about what the advantages of diecast are, they would make the figure maybe more durable, but these are not figures that are going to do much of anything except sit on a shelf. If you're playing with it a ton, But these are not machine parts. These are figures. And so the die cast, really, it's more of a psychological benefit, I would say, more than anything. Because sitting on a shelf, you can't really sit there and you can't look around and say, oh, yeah, the knees are die cast or the knees are plastic or whatever. Because you can't, I mean, you can almost look in here and say, oh, is that die cast? Looks kind of like die cast. But it's not. That's plastic. This part in here may look die cast. That is plastic. So this figure really kind of changed my mind on, maybe it didn't, maybe I wasn't like, well, yeah, now I want all my figures to be all plastic. But it did kind of show me that all plastic can be advantageous. And it's funny that this is part of the Carbotics lineup because this is not a Carbotics figure. I mean, I don't even know what Carbotics means anymore because this is a plastic figure. So let me, here it is, Mechander Robo on Amazon, selling for $459 plus $61 delivery. I think that's absurd. That's quite silly. And that's the only one that is being sold on here. If you go on the Blitzway website, so there is there's the Carbotics. Okay, so it says 5 Pro Studio. The product's Carbotics. So these are the only two of the ones that have been released that are still showing on there, and they're both sold out. Voltron is sold out. And this is a weathering version. So he's got, looks like some rust-looking areas on there for people who want a different version. Mine was the first version that came out, and it does not feature weathering. Oh, so there's the licensor, Wacko Production. So maybe they're still around. I don't know. Yeah. So this is a nice figure. I really like this figure. It's a license that I don't know that anyone really cares about, but it is still a nice looking figure, despite the fact that I think most people, very few people would really even care about Mechander Robo. I would be interested in seeing the cartoon. It says on the Wikipedia page that they had all sorts of issues with bankruptcy and difficulty in finishing the series. So there's been some series that, like Astro Ganger was one that I would have never probably picked up had I not gotten the figure. And so I said, well, let me give it a try. And it actually was not bad at all. I thought it was quite good. So, and some of the figures, some of the series that are very well known, like Mazinger Z, I didn't think were that great. So let me show you some more. This little thing comes off. I'm not going to take it off. But he's got some very nice engineering. Again, the paint job is absolutely meticulous. So the leg bends very... Oh, jeez. I don't want to scratch this thing. I want to rub it against the table. It's hard to... Ah, see, there's the ankle. Ankle's a little bit weak. I don't want to scuff this by sitting there trying to move it or manipulate it with one hand. But it's a very nice figure. Not all my robot figures are nice, so... But I have yet to see a 5 Pro Studio Blitzway figure that wasn't very nice. So there you go. That's Mechander Robo.